Lupinus is the genus name for over 200 species of lupine worldwide. This is Lupinus perennis, or sundial lupine, a species native to North America and today so rare that it is listed as threatened or endangered in 6 New England states. Its flowers have the typical morphology of a bean-producing plant. It has 5 petals that form 2 parts, an upper banner and 2 wings that make up the lower keel-like structure. This will eventually produce a stalk of beans, the lupine. Produced in Europe by Lupinus albus, or the white lupine, the beans are a popular garnish for a Mediterranean meal. Equally characteristic of the lupines are the palmate leaves. As seen here, the leaf of Lupinus perennis has 7 to 11 leaflets. These plants, like others of the bean family, fertilize the soil by converting atmospheric nitrogen into ammonium, a nutrient essential for plant growth. Among the early Greeks and Romans, lupines were widely cultivated both as food and as green manure. As the Roman poet Virgil recounted in his Georgics, published in 29 BC. Lupines, being sown in the field, are as good as dung to it. Given its long-known property as a fertilizer, it is puzzling how the idea ever arose that the word lupinus derived from the Latin for wolf, lupus, because it ravaged, depleted, or overran the earth. Yet this is precisely what happened, beginning with entries in leading encyclopedias of the day, like the Rees Encyclopedia of 1819, in which we find, Professor Martin says the word owes its origin to lupus, a wolf, because plants of this genus ravage the ground by overrunning it, after the manner of that animal. A half a century later, Harvard's Asa Gray, one of the most influential of American academics in the field of natural history, more or less guaranteed that the wolf etymology for lupinus would become entrenched in the English-speaking world, as he included it in several of his books. From his School and Field Book of Botany, for example, from 1880, we read, "Name from lupus, a wolf, because lupines were thought to destroy the fertility of the soil." This idea that lupinus was etymologically linked to lupus continues into our century. Here are but a few examples. From the Robert W. Feckman Herbarium, the University of Wisconsin. From the Latin, lupus for wolf, alluding to the belief that these plants rob the soil, which is the opposite of the truth. And from the Collins English Dictionary, lupinus, wolfish, from the belief that the plant ravenously exhausted the soil. And from the Online Etymology Dictionary of 2014. From Latin, lupinus, name of the plant, noun use of an adjective meaning of a wolf. The reason for association with the animal is unclear. Perhaps it was so called because of a belief that the plants were harmful to the soil. But to put it simply, all declarations for the past 200 years that the origin of the word lupine is from lupus, a wolf, are wrong. Lupines were not associated with lupus, but rather lupe, meaning sad. According to University of Wisconsin professor James McKeown in his book, A Cabinet of Roman Curiosities, 2012, lupines were not associated with wolves, lupi. By their bitterness they made the face of anyone who tastes them sad, according to St. Isidore, alluding to a link with lupe, pain, and suggesting that Virgil plays with this derivation in the phrase tristis lupini, or sad lupines. The reference is to a phrase used by Virgil, again in the Georgics, written some 2,000 years ago. Tristis lupini. The QUE after tristis simply means and. It's a play of words, since both lupe and tristis mean sad. It's a bit like saying fast swifts in reference to the bird, or flaming phlox, phlox meaning torch. or perhaps blushing rose. In each case, the adjective echoes the meaning of the noun. But which is it, sad lupines or bitter lupines? Saint Isidore, the scholarly Archbishop of Seville, who interpreted many writings of the ancients, thought it the former. And the sad lupines, because with their bitterness they make the taster's face look sad. Possibly, but a 19th century botanical publisher, Thomas Meehan, urged us to consider an alternative explanation. There is a story in Aesop's fables about a boy who loved to cry wolf when there was no wolf about. The story could not be better illustrated in the vegetable kingdom than by a reference to its use in the case of this plant. Dr. Barton, referring to the above, adds, the word is also supposed to be derived from the Greek lupe, grief, a notion which is supposed to be supported by Virgil's epithet Tristis lupini, which he used not, perhaps, without a full stretch of the poet's license, from the fanciful idea that the acrid juices of the lupine he alluded to produced a sorrowful cast upon the countenance. It is singular that the most probable reason for the epithet sad lupine has been generally overlooked. An old writer observes of the white lupine, the leaves have the sides contracted at night and bend down, being bent back to the petiole. It has been customary from the earliest times to associate drooping leaves with sadness. We speak of the weeping willow, and apply the term to all trees, the branches of which bend toward the ground, and it was probably from this drooping habit of the leaves that the lupine derived its name, and suggested the idea of sadness to Virgil. This seems to have been in the mind of the poet J. W. Davis, probably, when he wrote, the lupines here, as evening shadows rise, low droop their sorrowing leaves, and close their timid eyes. And finally, another late 19th century writer whose prose and etchings were brought to bear on the nightly vigil of some of our native wildflowers, including the sad lupine. In an article entitled A Midnight Ramble for Harper's Magazine of 1889, William Hamilton Gibson wrote, and here is another interesting specimen close by, a member of that same somniferous tribe, the blue lupine, the sad lupine of Virgil, Tristis lupinus. But at midnight, Gibson observes, the blue flower spikes rise up precisely as at midday, but the foliage presents a striking contrast, every wheel-shaped leaf now drooping like a closed parasol against the stem. But whether Virgil meant the sad lupine because its bitter-tasting beans can sadden the look upon the face, or sad lupine because of its turned-down leaves, only one thing is certain. The word has never had anything to do with the wolf.